Breath of the Wild is one of the best games in the Legend of Zelda series. Well, it isn't my personal favorite because Majora's Mask is a game that exists, and it is my favorite. I mean, that's obvious because I 100%ed it, and I haven't 100%ed any other Legend of Zelda game. It is the Zelda game that I have spent the most time playing. I have spent hundreds of hours in the open world that Nintendo has created for this game. And I feel that the way that they created this world is amazing. Then there's Hyrule Warriors, which is a Dynasty Warriors spin-off that features characters from throughout the Legend of Zelda franchise. And because it's a hack-and-slash game, it's a fun time for a bit, but you need to play it in short bursts, or at least I did, because it got pretty boring. But since this game was not developed by Nintendo, and was developed by Koei Tecmo, they did not have to deal with the timeline placement and canonicity of the Zelda series, because the game was deemed non-canon. So what happens when Nintendo and Koei Tecmo work together to combine these two series? You get Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity, which is a blend of Breath of the Wild's visuals and some of its combat, and Dynasty Warriors or Hyrule Warriors. Because, I mean, they use most of the combat found in those series, but they mixed in enough Breath of the Wild to have Zelda fans satisfied. Age of Calamity was made with the help of the Zelda Breath of the Wild team, meaning that it is a canon story in the Zelda series, because Zelda series has multiple timelines. It can take place on that timeline, okay? So this is going to be a spoiler review. If you haven't played the game, then play the game and then watch this, or if you just want spoilers, then you can continue watching, okay? I'm glad we're on the same page. Now let's continue. The game features 20 main levels with over 200 side quests and challenge maps, meaning that it is a pretty good-sized game. I haven't even finished all the challenge maps and side quests, and I have around 35 hours in the game. However, if you're wondering how long it would take to finish the main story, it took me around 22 hours, so I would say that it's a pretty good size for a new Switch game. It also features 14 characters with an optional 4 unlockable characters through various side missions and challenge maps. The first real characters that you unlock are Link and Impa. Link plays exactly how you would want. He is able to use the bow, just like in Breath of the Wild, and does bullet time when he pulls the bowstring back, and then he also uses swords, spears, and bigger two-handed weapons. He's one of the only characters in this game that has different weapon types. Impa uses katanas, with various Sheikah clones showing up whenever she absorbs enemy runes. You do that by pressing her special attack R button, which is the same button that Link uses when he wants to use his bow. And that means that Impa is one of the best characters to play as in the game because she drains enemy health really quickly. Zelda is next, and she uses the Sheikah Slate to attack. But in the later game, which is a big spoiler, she uses the bow, light, and her sealing powers, but she's unable to block when doing so, meaning you have a trade-off where she's really powerful, but you can't block, so you get more damage done to you. Mipha uses her light scale trident and water attacks. She can also heal people, which makes her really good when you have multiple soldiers that you need to heal in the battle. Urbosa uses her sword and lightning powers, where she can strike lightning down and attack others with them. Revali uses his bow, but he also has a different moveset based on whether he's flying or not, and he can activate his flying by pressing the R button just like Impa or Link. And Daruk uses his boulder breaker, but he can also roll into enemies by pressing X, which is pretty interesting. And then there's Hestu. I don't like Hestu. Hestu is bad. He is slow, and he summons Koroks that attack enemies, but the Koroks summon treasure chests and various other items that also attack the enemies, and because of how much items the game is loading in, the game slows down to a crawl, and it's just not fun. I mean, seriously, what were they thinking with Hestu? I mean, he could have been like a bonus unlockable character by collecting all the Korok seeds, which, yes, there are Korok seeds in this game, because why not? But, I mean, seriously, why is he even in this game? Since you unlock these characters so early on, these are the ones that you are going to be using for most of the game. However, you can also unlock characters by doing side quests. Typically, you do 3 side quests and then fight the character to unlock them. So this includes Monk Maj Kosha and the Great Fairies, one of which is the worst character in the game, and I can let you guess which one that is. Monk Maj Kosha uses his Sheikah powers and can grow big and spin attack, but he can also summon ancient artifacts that, when break, can give him a power boost. So he's like his boss battle from Breath of the Wild's Champion Ballad DLC. The Great Fairies are big and clumsy and the worst characters in the game, okay? They special attack by kissing their enemies. I mean, what the heck, Nintendo? That's freaking weird. I don't like it. And also they're slow, and they move around in their flower pod, which I thought grew in the ground, so it just doesn't make any sense, and I just deeply dislike them. After going along in the story, you can play as the champion's descendants from Breath of the Wild, which means that this game is no longer a canon prequel to Breath of the Wild. However, I still find this game to be canon, and I'll talk about that later in the video. The new champion's movesets are as follows. You can play as Riju, who attacks with her Sandseal Patricia, who is the best girl. She is so cute. Sidon uses a trident and water, with more powerful attacks than his older sister Mipha. Yunobo uses Daruk's protection and his fists as weapons, but moves very slowly compared to Daruk. Tiba uses his bow, but unlike Rivali, he only has one moveset and only flies when running. All of the champions are fun to play as, mainly because their combat is varied. A little further into the game, around the last few missions, you unlock King Rome and Master Koga, both of which are really fun to play as, but King Rome has a more varied combat style. Heck, he can even turn into his old man persona from the beginning of Breath of the Wild. Master Koga uses his various attacks from his boss battles from Breath of the Wild and Age of Calamity. So, I feel they both have really good character combat styles. Finally, there are the last two post-game unlockable characters. These are very hard to unlock. To unlock Terrako, the Egg Guardian that travels back from the future, you have to collect 50 Terrako shards throughout various side missions and challenge maps. These include fighting 4 Malice Lynels in 8 minutes and other hard tasks. These are incredibly hard to do, but Terrako is really fun to play as and use. He uses lasers as his main form of combat, which makes him really fun. Finally, there's Calamity Ganon, or at least the Age of Calamity version, which looks way better than the Breath of the Wild version in my opinion, as he has a more humanoid form. He is the hardest character to unlock, as you have to defeat Astor, a major bad guy in the game, Harbinger Ganon, and Calamity Ganon in 10 minutes. I have yet to do so I have not played as him yet, which sucks, but his boss battle is really fun. Characters aren't the only thing you can play as in this game, as you can also play as the Divine Beasts. Heck yes, they're so cool to play as, but depending on the level. They're so slow and filled with so many enemies that the frame rate dies during these levels. My favorite Divine Beasts to play as are Vah Ruda and Vah Naboris. I have found more problems with Vah Rudania and Vah Meadow's gameplay, as it is harder to turn during those levels. The story of Age of Calamity is also very interesting, as it is a separate timeline because of Egg Boy shenanigans. He travels from the Breath of the Wild timeline to prevent the outcome of Breath of the Wild. Why are these Zelda games so confusing? He brings back the future champions from Breath of the Wild to rescue the champions that die in Breath of the Wild's past, which is also Age of Calamity's future, which is... Why is this so hard to explain? The story is something that I enjoy, mainly because I'm a Zelda fan. I mean, I see why they didn't make it a prequel, as playing an entire game and then having everyone die is not a very pleasant experience. However, the story is portrayed through cutscenes which look straight from Breath of the Wild. And don't worry, the voice acting is way better than Breath of the Wild. They actually had some practice. It's the same voice actors from Breath of the Wild, but they're more experienced now. Except for Hestu. Hestu is very, very annoying. Okay, he's unbearable. But other than that, the voice acting is amazing, and it gets really emotional when the future champions meet the past champions. Especially when Mipha meets adult Sidon. It's so sad that I almost cried, but I did not cry. I did not. The graphics of the game are also amazing, which is one of its downfalls. It looks just like Breath of the Wild, which is great, I guess, but the amount of enemies is pushed to 100. Because of that, guess what? The game runs at 30 frames per second with 10 to 15 frames per second dips when fighting giant hordes of enemies. However, this doesn't bug me because I'm not a frame rate snob. I barely notice frame rate. So I actually sort of like it when the frame rate dips in these types of games like Hyrule Warriors and Age of Calamity, because it is actually really satisfying having the frames just slow down because of how many enemies you're whipping the crap out of. It's so fun. Something I do not like, however, is how Nintendo decided to advertise this game by stating, "Discover what happened 100 years ago," which seems to imply that the game is a prequel to Breath of the Wild. This is not the case, because the plot of the game is very different from what you would expect, but I am not fine with how the game was marketed. So, I do find this game to be canon with Breath of the Wild, however. This is because the Egg Boy comes from the Breath of the Wild universe. He also brings back the champions from Breath of the Wild, as they mention how it is nice to fight alongside Link again. The amount of characters in the game is very nice, with good variations in playstyles for all of the characters. However, some of the challenge maps are very annoying, especially the one-hit challenges, which makes sense because they're challenge maps. In the one-hit challenges, you can't even get hit by a single bokoblin or else you die and have to start over. Luckily, there's checkpoints along the way where you can save your progress. But it gets really annoying when you get hit from behind by an Octorok while trying to avoid a white Lynel. So overall, what do I think of Age of Calamity? I feel like it's an amazing alternate universe story that fits well in the Zelda universe. However, the marketing brings it down a peg, as I'm fine with the frame rate and story. I do feel that it gives us more insight into the minds of the characters from Breath of the Wild. So therefore, I give Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity a 8.5 out of 10. So overall, what did you guys think of Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity? Have you not played it yet? Why didn't you not heed the spoiler warning? Anyways, tell me in the comments below. And then I'm looking forward to change up my content every now and then. So I'm going to do stuff like this, and I'm going to do the film reviews stuffs. But I'm also going to be doing the art content, and I'm looking forward to trying to do some animations in the future. So if that's something you're interested in, then please subscribe and hit that bell. And so that way you can stay notified to what my content is released. And then I will see you guys in another video. Have a wonderful rest of your day.